So obviously the Republicans have been strongly against Obamacare from day one. In fact, they tried to repeal it over 60 times. This obviously was when the Democrats had a majority in the Senate and when Obama was president, so they weren't able to successfully do it any of those times. But also no Republicans even voted for it. So think about that for a second. The Democrats, argued at the beginning, look, we're not even going to try for single payer because then we're not going to get any Republican votes, so forget that. Let's start the negotiation by conceding up front and pushing for a public option, which is like watered down single payer. You can opt into it or not. So they started by negotiating and caving when the Republicans were like, no. And then the Democrats caved again from a public option to an individual mandate system, which is Obamacare, which is what we ended up getting, which is originally a right-wing plan. But the Republicans said no, even though we proposed it in the past and we wrote policy papers about it from the Heritage Foundation, even though it was similar to Richard Nixon's plan and Bob Dole's plan, and even though Newt Gingrich and Chuck Grassley and the most conservative Republicans supported this as recently as the 1990s, no. Now we're against our own ideas. So 0 votes for it. They tried to repeal it over 60 times. And now that they have power, they're acting on it. You can see that a lot of it was bark without bite, though, because they kind of knew it was impossible for their repeals to pass when the Democrats held the Senate and the presidency. So it was just kind of like symbolic red meat to the base, like, yeah, we're against Obamacare. See, that's why we tried to repeal it all these times. Then when they actually got power, they're like, all right, we're going to repeal it, but fuck, what are we going to do to replace it? Because we have no clue what the fuck we're doing. And they don't. They really have no idea what they're doing. But now they kind of took an amalgamation of various right-wing ideas and various talking points President Trump has used, and they said, okay, this is our grand plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. So, first let's talk about the good. This list is very short. So the good are all ideas from Obamacare that if they tried to get rid of it, there would be a fucking uprising. So in other words, like some provisions that have gotten nothing but wide praise, under Obamacare, you get to allow your kids to stay on your health insurance until age 26. It used to be much lower than that, but Obamacare extended it to age 26. Virtually everybody agrees with this, and the Republicans know, even though we're against it, we can't repeal it because then, people might actually be in the streets with pitchforks. Furthermore, they couldn't bring themselves to get rid of the pre-existing conditions provision because they know, again, that that's political suicide, and you would give the Democrats a giant gift where they can go out there and say, these monsters are even against, covering people with pre-existing conditions. They want to allow insurance companies to reject people for pre-existing conditions. Now, that's it for the good. Now let's get to the bad. There were, under Obamacare, and are income-based tax credits. So you get subsidies if you're basically a middle-class earner or lower, and it helps you afford your health insurance. Now, again, you're buying on the private market, you're purchasing on the private market, so somebody like me still hates this reform because I want a single-payer system. But if you're gonna still have a private market, some people are just gonna need subsidies because they just can't afford it without it. So, insofar as you buy into the framework of this bill, it's a necessary part. Well, now the Republicans are saying no more income-based tax credits. We're going to replace it with credits that rise with age. Yeah, but what about people who are middle income or getting close to that Medicaid line, or they're closer to poverty, and they can't afford their insurance? They go, yeah, they don't get a good subsidy. We're going to do it by age subsidies. Well, that just doesn't make sense because what's going to happen is a lot of people are not going to be able to afford it, and they're just going to go without health care, just like before. Obamacare has many problems, but you got to remember, guys, it covered, I think, 30 million more people. So by some ways of measuring, it was a success. By other ways, of course, it wasn't, but it certainly increased coverage. There's no denying that. Well, now they're doing something that's basically going to just put a knife in the heart of what the bill is. So on top of that, no more individual mandate. Now, again, I wasn't a fan of the individual mandate to begin with, but that's because I thought you can't have private insurance companies still intact and still running the show. But if you're going to have a situation where the private insurance companies are still running the show, then you have to have an individual mandate, because if you don't have an individual mandate, millions are going to be uncovered. And again, that's what's going to happen. So millions of people are going to lose their insurance. Now, I also love this fact. In their Obamacare replacement bill, they don't even mention numbers of like, here's how many people are insured, we want to insure this many more people, or we want to limit the number of people who lose insurance to this number of people. They don't even touch on that at all. And they don't touch on that because they don't care. That's not, like, they're not concerned about what the heart of a healthcare bill and a health insurance bill should be, which is how many people are covered. Because if you're not covered, you're probably going to go bankrupt if you run into medical bills. But they don't, like, in their fucking health insurance bill, they don't lay out, here's how many people we're going to insure. It's fucking ridiculous. They're not serious people. These are people who have drunk the Kool-Aid of Mark Levin and Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh for years, and now it's reflected in their policy proposals when they're so incredibly stupid that in their health insurance bill and their health care bill, they don't really discuss the health insurance part and the health care part. It's like, yeah, here are the things we're going to do, and then everything will be tremendous. This is what how Trump thinks. We do these things, it'll be good. Buy insurance across state lines, and it'll be tremendous. Let me just tell you. But that's a ruse. So for that idea, for those of you who don't know, I think most of the people in my audience already know, they act like this would be a great revolutionary thing, and it would help so many people if you just allow them to buy health insurance and purchase across state lines. No, what'll happen is you just incentivize the health insurance companies to all go to the state where they're taxed the least. That's the only thing that is. So that whole plan is just a ruse to give a bigger tax break to health insurance companies so that they make more money. It's got nothing to do with helping the people, nothing to do with insuring more people, nothing to do with improving the quality of care. It's a bullshit corporate sellout idea. All right, now furthermore, the bill includes a big tax break for insurance companies that pay their CEOs more than $500,000 a year. I don't even know how to respond to this garbage. I mean, so you're incentivizing insurance companies to pay their CEOs a tremendous amount of money. That's all that is. That's all that is. So more tax breaks for the rich. Let's further exacerbate income inequality by giving them a reason, even if they're not paying their CEOs over $500,000 a year, make them want to pay their CEOs over $500,000 a year, divert more resources into the pockets of the rich, and take more health care away from the people. Why would you include that provision? And Democrats, where the fuck are you? This is the shit you're supposed to point at and argue against. This is the shit where you're supposed to say, look at these clowns. They think they're serious people. All of their proposals are just stealth ideas to try to make the rich richer and screw over the people. Why would you add that provision? A big tax break for insurance companies that pay their CEOs more than $500,000 a year. I'll tell you why you add that provision. You're nothing but a front for corporate America. That's what you are. That's what your entire party is. The Democrats suck too, don't get me wrong. But the Republicans, they don't even try to fucking hide it. They don't even try to mask it a little bit. Like, oh yeah, no, we care about people. It's like, no, put in a provision that says we give a big tax break for insurance companies that pay their CEOs more than $500,000. On top of that, this bill defunds Planned Parenthood and eliminates abortion coverage. When you go after Planned Parenthood, do you not understand that even a majority of Republicans think you're idiots? See, on top of being a corporate sellout party, they're also a Christian fundamentalist party, so they pander to the far right, and they try to enact legislation that the overwhelming majority of the American people don't like. By the way, there already are no federal funds going to abortion. That's what the Hyde Amendment is. It's been law for a very long time. So, in other words, the only time Planned Parenthood does abortion is if somebody pays for it out of pocket, or somebody pays for it themselves. There are no federal funds that go for it. Now, on top of that, 97% of what Planned Parenthood does has nothing to do with abortion. Nothing. 97%. Defund Planned Parenthood and eliminate abortion coverage. On top of that, and again, this is getting worse and worse as we go along here. they would phase out the Medicaid expansion under Obamacare, which, of course, extended coverage to more than 11 million people. So if you phase out the Medicaid expansion, you're simply just taking away healthcare from poor people. That's all that is. That's the only way to describe that. Now, they say in our magical theory, what happens is we get rid of that, but then, they will end up getting healthcare on their own volition and do it this way and do it that way. And, a Republican congressman was on TV earlier today saying, the poor will have to pick between their iPhones and their healthcare. Whoa. This is the mindset of the Republican Party in America. That's the mindset. The mindset is, this is something we can hold over your head, your healthcare. In other modern countries, that's not a thing. Healthcare is just a given. You're born into what's supposed to be a civilized society, so if you get sick, you get help and you don't go broke. In fact, you pay nothing out of pocket. Here they say, no, we're going to force you to make a choice between a cell phone, a smartphone, and healthcare. And then they have the nerve to say they're for the American people. They're looking out for regular people, working people. You're going to kick millions of people off of their health insurance. And then my favorite fact, 7 pages in this bill, and it's a bill that has 66 pages, so not that many pages, but 7 of the pages are focused on denying Medicaid coverage to lottery winners. You know why they put that in, right? There was probably a story that was big on the right-wing blogosphere within the past 5 years or so about how somebody who won the lottery was gaming the system and they, used Medicaid, and how dare they do that. So 7 pages of the 66 pages are dedicated to that. To saying, it's outrageous that some people who won the lottery gamed the system and took advantage of Medicaid. How dare they do that? So we're making clear, no Medicaid for people who won the lottery. 7 of the 66 pages. This is a bill that's so silly, so ridiculous, that it honestly is like fucking Rush Limbaugh wrote it. But get this. Here's another great fact. It's probably not going to pass. Now, why is that? Apparently, there are some Republicans who understand, hey, I'm not going to get reelected. If we don't keep the Medicaid expansion, I'm not going to get reelected. Because a lot of their voters are Republicans who use the Medicaid expansion, who are on Medicaid. And if you just kick them off, they're going to blame you. They're going to blame the Republicans. And now they don't have the plausible deniability where they say, well, the Democrats are in charge, so blame them if something bad happens to you. So now they're in charge, and they want to fuck people over, but at the same time, if you fuck them over too much and serve your corporate donors too much, well, then you just have a bullseye on your fucking forehead. So, for example, Senator Rob Portman, Shelley Moore Capito, I don't even know who the fuck that is, a Republican from West Virginia, Cory Gardner and Lisa Murkowski, they wrote a letter to Mitch McConnell, and they said, quote, we will not support a plan that does not include stability for Medicaid expansion populations or flexibility for states. Now, on top of that, so some Republican governors said, we're never going to accept the Medicaid expansion, and they didn't. And as a result of that, thousands of people in their states are fucked, and they didn't get the health insurance and the health care they need, and some people died. Thousands of people died because some Republican governors didn't accept the Medicaid expansion. Of the Republicans that did accept the Medicaid expansion, they're all like, don't you dare fucking get rid of this. Because again, if you get rid of it, thousands of people in their states get kicked off, millions total across the country lose their health insurance, and then those Republicans are guaranteed to lose in the next election. So I don't think this is going to pass because there's enough Republicans who are like, no. And then furthermore, there are other Republicans who are using this talking point, which is hilarious, where they say, I'm against this because we have Obamacare, and this is Obamacare light. And I don't want Obamacare light. I want no Obamacare at all. So they're doing like political posturing and ideological purity, and they're saying, we want no healthcare plan. We want our healthcare plan to be, here's some ointment and a Band-Aid, bitch. Now shut the fuck up. So between the Republicans who say, this is Obamacare light and I will not vote for it because I want a further right-wing plan that fucks over people more, between those people and the Republicans who are like, yeah, you just can't get rid of the Medicaid expansion because that would have disastrous consequences. It appears like this might not go anywhere. So, man, the Republicans, once they get into, I mean, they're ridiculous when they're not governing, you know, because they just come across as ideological purists, but more importantly, they have shitty ideas. Their ideas are terrible. But when they get into power and they actually have to govern, they really have no clue what the fuck they're doing. Like, it's so weird and strange and bizarre to watch them like chickens with their heads cut off. Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, who couldn't think their way out of a fucking paper bag. Paul Ryan is viewed as an intellectual. The guy read a few Ayn Rand books when he was like 17, and now he thinks he's a brilliant economist or something. Nonsense. Donald Trump obviously can't think his way out of a paper bag. And now they're like, yeah, we agree Obamacare is bad, right? Yeah, tremendous, it's bad. Now we got to do something about that? All right, let's repeal it. But fuck, what do we replace it with? Well, you only had, you know, was Obamacare implemented, or when did it pass? 2009? So you've had all these years to fucking think about it, and all they had was their bullshit, you know, right-wing talk radio talking points. And then when it comes time to actually implement it, when you have something like Medicaid, the Medicaid expansion, which is just unequivocally a good thing, which just helps so many more poor people get health insurance and health care, you can't just rip the rug out from underneath people. So we'll see what ends up happening here. I know they still want to get rid of Obamacare. There's no denying that. But the fact that they can't come up with a coherent plan to replace it, and obviously they can't replace it with something that is better, because they're trying to like go further right on the spectrum. This is just like watching a fucking paranoid schizophrenic person trying to solve a math problem or something. No disrespect to paranoid schizophrenic people. You know, the Republicans obviously have more issues than you do.